Oh wow, that's too long, sorry. Okay, let's get started. So I was telling you how to do the setup. So you go to SageMaker and you create a notebook. And the first thing is, name your notebook somewhat. So I would name it logically Pytorch book, but I already have a Pytorch book notebook. So I'm going to do it Pytorch book. And I'm going to be like, let's say Pytorch book. And I'm going to make sure it's number 2. Got it. Then you need to choose the notebook instance type. And what does it mean? So basically, what AWS is doing is putting, just like a nice interface on top of like an EC2 instance. So you're getting with SageMaker an EC2 instance with a managed EBS volume. That makes sense to you, or depending on your level of, cloud services, it might not make any sense. But what you're getting basically here to choose is the type of virtual machine, the type of computer in which you want to do things. Then in order to do, deep learning, we said we need a GPU. So that's basically like the P family. And the last generation of the P family is P3. So I'm going to go for like the smallest one, which has just like one single GPU, which is P3 2x large. And then I'm going to, very important, go here to additional configuration. And what I'm going to do is change the volume size of the notebook. So I think one thing that's very interesting is that if you want to save on costs, you could start, with the default volume size, which is only like 5 gigs, and then keep increasing. But I don't care that much of like saving costs now because it anyhow, storage volume is very cheap. So I know if the author says that you need at least 200 gigabytes, I'm gonna go a bit bigger and do 250, right? And I promise you that's very cheap. You can check on AWS pricing and you will see how much you pay for the computing time and for the storage. Then there's just one more single thing that you need to do, which is the Git repositories. And that step is actually optional, but it would make your life way easier. So you basically go here, deep learning with Pytorch, and you copy the link to this GitHub repo, right? Because it has two repos. So I'm gonna go and copy this link. I'm gonna do clone a public Git repo to this notebook instance only, right? So I'm just gonna copy this one, and tags means if you have a group of notebooks and you wanna name them somewhat, or yeah, you could use a tagging system. Just like ignore the rest for that. And now just do like create notebook instance. And what basically you will see here is that now your status is pending and this notebook is getting created. Then to save up on some time, what I've done is I told you same configuration. I have this one already created, and as you can see, it copies exactly the same GitHub repo, has some storage space, same notebook type, blah blah. So I'm gonna do. You can choose between open in Jupyter and open in Jupyter Lab, and I find Jupyter Lab way nicer. So I'm gonna go and open in Jupyter Lab. Okay. Yeah. So that's basically like, and it's amazing, right? Because you already got your like whole repo cloned, and you see, for instance, part one, chapter two. So let's go into that and see what's in there, and making sure things work. So what's very important that you do is like you select the right kernel, right? So by default, you probably get this MXNet, which is the deep learning framework of like Amazon with Python 2.7. Honestly, you just want to scroll down a bit and make sure you selected this one, Conda PyTorch 3.6. So you just go ahead, select this one, make sure your kernel lives, and then if you did the setup correctly, you will see that you have no problem in running all those cells, which is what I'm going to be testing, right? So the book hasn't gone over it yet, but we are creating two tensors, which is like a multi-dimensional array of 3 by 3, and we are adding them. And what we are doing here, and that's very important, is we are putting them to the GPU because by default they are on the CPU. And then you can hear here how the device is your GPU. And that shows that it has worked out correctly, which means that we can know now go back to the chapter of the book and checked both of these requirements and and conclude this part. Just want to mention here they mention a couple other books and good online resources that I think you probably also want to check as well. Then exciting paragraph about the authors. which I briefly mentioned. So Ellie Stevens has spent the majority of his career working at startups in Silicon Valley. I think that's super exciting. And now he's working in machine learning in the self-driving car industry, which, I think it's a super hot area for uh, computer vision practitioners. Then Luke Antiga has worked as a researcher in biomedical engineering in the 2000s and spent the last decade. He has co-founded his own company and is the CTO, and I think that's also super exciting, right? Um, and I think I want to say about Luca is that when I was learning to code, I used a software called 3D Slicer, and he actively like participated in that. So it's a person whose work I start using and admiring way before I knew him, thanks to this book, right? So yeah, and finally, Thomas Beeman is a machine learning and Pytorch specialty training and consultant based in Munich, Germany, which makes me very happy because means Luca is based in Italy, Thomas Beeman is based in Germany. So who knows? Maybe I will have, when Corona times is over, the chance to get to know them. And he's a Pytorch core developer and has a PhD in mathematics, and it's not scared of theory, but he loves doing things hands-on and practical. So yeah, I think that's all about the authors. And finally, about the illustration of the book, the caption you see on the book, this guy with the weird dress, is called Cardinian, and and honestly never found these Manning covers too pretty, but I think it's interesting to know that they actually come. There are dresses all around the walls from this famous book from this French guy whose names I'm not gonna attempt to pronounce. Uh, but I think it's very nice the reflection they make of how, few, like, let's say just 200 years ago, regions and towns were isolated from each other and people spoke different dialects and languages. And in the streets, you could totally feel like just like moving a few cities away, that difference by the way they would dress, right? And how this has changed nowadays when even you cannot even tell computer books apart from one another. So I thought that was a worth point mentioning. So yes, I think that concludes this video, and in the next one, I'm going to be moving to part one and chapter one. So thanks for watching.